Hello, YouTube! Sorry for the somewhat delays. I've been trying to manage doing it 1 week at a time or whatever, but yeah, last weekend I did want to continue, but kind of had some personal things coming up. Perhaps if someone wants to know, I don't know. Hey guys, just to also note, I just watched V for Vendetta. Really, really good. So, if you guys haven't seen that movie, I suggest you do, especially if you're into renegade, revolution type stuff. In any case, enough about me, time to get on with the reading. Chapter 8. Celestia was losing patience. The council remained deadlocked, while Celerity and Emmett continued sniping at each other with increasingly less subtlety. She had ordered several of the firewings into the chamber to maintain order, but the council ponies were getting restless. Nobles yelled at each other from across the table, arguing back and forth senselessly. Celerity shouted over the din. I don't know how to put this more clearly. Either we send reinforcements to the garrison at Selpaloth, or we sit back and watch the Griffins take over our land and country. Make no mistake, those are our choices. I'd rather die than see the Crown's troops be put in your service, Belle. Your power grab will be the death of us all. Blue blood, you idiot! The world stands ready to be consumed by war, and you are about to be caught flat-footed by it. Should be flat-hoofed, I suppose. Anyway. I will not let my people suffer the indignity of a Griffin invasion. If this council cannot come to the right decision, then I will be forced to take action of my own. If this council succumbs to your threats, Belle, then I see no choice but to oppose you myself, directly, with force if necessary. Princess Celestia's heart caught in her throat. This needed to stop before Blue Blood did something rash. Enough! Both of you! This arguing is pointless. I don't see us driven to fighting each other while another threat looms so near. Blue Blood snorted scornfully. Pah! The only threat I see is Duchess Belle. She would put herself on the throne. Celerity looked furious. How dare you, you creep! My loyalty is and has been and always will be to the princess and the ponies of Equestria. Her horn glowed brightly. Blue Blood and Celerity leapt to their hooves as one, looking ready to break into a magical duel right in the middle of the chamber. Celestia stood and spread her wings. Her eyes were narrow and her voice cold. That is enough. You will calm yourselves, now. The two unicorns quailed under the stern gaze of their princess. We have had enough of your bickering. Celerity caught the royal we and swallowed. It was a sure sign the princess was close to losing her temper. We'll deliver our decision tomorrow. This council is dismissed. Get out. The council ponies practically fled from the chamber, cowed by the princess's rage. I certainly would. As the last of their tails disappeared round the door, Celestia sank into her throne as if deflating. Instantly, a firewing was at her side with a cup of tea. She accepted it gratefully. Thank you, Bergeron, the princess drank slowly. Milady, what are you going to do? She sighed. I'm not sure. Celerity is right. We need to reinforce the southern border, but doing so will almost certainly push Emmett into declaring war. She took another sip of her tea. But we need to act soon. We can't let the Griffins into Equestria. Another firewing approached them. Guard Captain Winstreak Strudel, clad in the golden arm of the firewings, took her place next to Bergeron. Is there nothing we can do? We gathered all the firewings here and put the military at full readiness. We're prepared to march south as soon as you can give the order. I can't do that, Winstreak. Much as it pains me to let Celerity stand alone, we have to keep Emmett satisfied. Without the northern provinces' support, Equestria will surely fall. Winstreak stamped her hoof angrily. We can't sit by and do nothing. I don't intend to, but we need the aid of the Nord ponies before we can move without Emmett's backing. The Nord ponies? Your messenger had better have a silver tongue. They've locked themselves away up north for the last 70 years. I doubt they're feeling particularly helpful at the moment. This ought to be good. Celestia stared wistfully into her empty teacup. It had drained far too soon. Actually, Winstreak, I feel I need to speak with you about that. Privately. Bergeron, Gerald, Edred, please leave us. The other firewings bowed and exited the chamber, whispering to each other. Winstreak, This matter concerns you more than you know. How so? Celestia sighed. This was going to be difficult. Perhaps you'd better sit down. That is something to take in there. The princess has failed me. She won't commit. She's too afraid of blue blood to give me the forces I need. Celerity's horn glowed as she paced around her quarters. Her tiara flew from her head and bounced off the wall. Weatherly caught the headpiece gingerly, carefully placing it on the dresser. My lady, I'm sure she will come to the right decision eventually. Weatherly, we don't have time. If she hasn't found her scent by tomorrow, then I'm going to take matters into my own hooves. Her cult servant whinnied nervously. And what does that entail? Celeri made an encouragingly wave of her hoof. We'll see. That's encouraging. She grabbed the seam of her gown with her mouth, rapidly tearing off the buttons and stripping out of the cumbersome dress. War is coming. Whether the princess wants it or not, we need to be ready. I fought the griffins in hundreds of excursions in my lifetime. They've wanted the Southlands for over 50 years, and I'll not be the one to let them have them. Celeri surveyed the crest of Whitetail, her eyes as hard as diamonds. My bloodline can be traced back to Lady Platinum herself. I refuse to let a bunch of filthy animals destroy what my ancestors have worked so hard to build. She stamped a hoof in determination. The griffins will never touch equestrian soil as long as I live. She sighed. Victory at any cost. Weatherly, prepare a message. Weatherly grabbed a quill, ink, and a sheaf of parchment, laying it flat out in the writing table. Celerity cleared her throat and began dictating. To Baron Burnside Auburn, Commander of the Army of Whitetail, Lord of Copperton, etc., etc. You are hereby ordered to ready your forces for war. I want 7,500 troops on the south edge of Whitetail Forest by Tuesday of next week. We'll be marching to the bridge at Trello and onward to Salapalot by the end of the week. Additionally, I'll need 1,200 of my best soldiers sent to the northern border of the forest and East Hill. The scratching of the quill paused. Weatherly looked up. East Hill? Why send troops there? Celerity's voice was as cold and hard as iron. This war is going to strain Whitetail's economy to the breaking point. We'll need East Hill steel production if we're going to create enough war material to fend off the griffins. But East Hill is completely loyal to Celestia. They won't support us if she doesn't. Hence the 1,200 troops. There was a long pause as Weatherly digested this. My lady, he choked. That would be treason. Is it treason to ensure the safety of my subjects? Celerity was icy and distant. Send the message. Weatherly's shoulders sank in defeat. Very well, my lady. He rolled up the parchment somberly and sealed it with a drop of wax. Celerity pressed her horn into the wax, sending a spark of magic that left the seal of Whitetail imprinted on it. Weatherly opened the door, taking the letter with him. As he left, he turned around and said, I hope it doesn't come down to this, Celerity. Celerity blinked away a tear. She knew what this would do to the princess. So do I, Weatherly. So do I. He disappeared into the hallway. Celerity reached up and touched the white-tailed crest. She spoke softly to herself. But we do what we must. Chapter 9. 2 o'clock of the morning watch. All's well, said the guard to Plumline. She nodded to her fellow guard pony and took his place at the wall. You're released, Sergeant. He nodded gratefully and clopped off along the wall. The fortress of Salapalot was quiet this morning, as it usually was. Most of the 200 ponies stationed here were still asleep at this hour, and Plumline liked the quiet. It gave her time to think about her mate, back up north in Whitetail. She was still assigned here for another 2 months, but she couldn't wait to see him. Oh, a romance. If she listened closely enough, she fancied she could hear the wind rustling over the scrubland in the early morning dark. It was a soothing sound, a faint whisper that spoke to the stark, plain beauty of Southland. She looked south over the expanse of dirt and sand. It was still too dark to make out the great dunes of the Salati in the distance, but Plumline could feel their presence. Every pony in Salapalot knew that it was only a matter of time before the griffins came out of that desert, but they had been stationed here for months without any reinforcements from the north. Plumline shuffled to get the blood flowing through her legs. If you didn't stay moving, you could get incredibly stiff on the wall. The fortress was drafty and uncomfortable, and an extremely unpleasant place to sleep. But it was impregnable, a bastion of defense that no siege had ever broken. Even with so few needs, Plumline was confident they could repel any of the small griffin raiding parties that occasionally dared to venture north. Small, yeah. The hours ticked by. Plumline yawned and blinked, trying to stay alert. Boring guard duty was the best kind of guard duty, she reminded herself. She shook her head to clear it, accidentally loosening her helmet. It stumbled off her head, clanging onto the stone at the wall's edge and over into the air. Plumline leaned out over the edge of the wall, desperately trying to catch it, but the helmet was gone. She sighed in frustration. Captain Dartmouth was going to give her an earful for this one. Something caught her eye. On the wall, moving up along the side like some kind of spider, was a great black shape. She leaned further out, trying to get a good look at it. What the? A sharp whistling caught her ear. Huh? A glint of metal came shooting from below, nearly missing Plumline's head. It shot over the wall, and with a clang, the metal thing became a three-pronged hook. It latched onto the wall, anchoring itself. Plumline stepped back in surprise, then horror as she realized what it was. A grappling hook. She looked over the wall again, and now she realized that the walls were swarming with black shapes. Plumline pulled back and yelled at the top of her lungs. We're under attack! Beneath her, the black things abandoned stealth, leaped off the wall, and spreading their great feathered wings. The griffin assassins swooped down over the lip of the wall, catching the watch ponies off guard. The griffins wore battle claws, sharpened blades made to fit over their natural talons. They were wickedly sharp, capable of slicing an unarmored pony in half, and the griffins were swift and efficient. The sounds of metal clashing rang out against the wall. What few guards remained on the wall were quickly being overwhelmed. Plumline turned and raced for the alarm bell. 4 great bells stood on the corners of the fortress, ready to wake the full contingent of the garrison in case of an emergency. Ahead of her, Plumline saw griffins vaulting the wall, slaughtering the guards and gliding down into the fortress. She raced past another guard who yelled, Go Plum, sound the alarm! We'll hold them off! He was locked in combat with a griffin, dressed in dark blue cloak the same shade as the night sky. He smashed his hooves into the griffin, sending it flying backwards off the wall. It turned mid-air and flapped its wings, coming back at the guard and slashing him with its claws. Plumline kept grunting, trying not to hear the squelch of metal on flesh. She reached the great bell, grabbing the pull rope in her mouth and ringing it as hard as she could. Dong, dong, dong. Yeah, I'm trying to do the sounds too here. Beneath the walls, inside the fortress, the guards woke to find themselves already under attack. The Griffin Commando Force had slipped inside and into the buildings, killing as many guards in their sleep as they could. The guards retaliated, but caught without their armor or weapons, there was little they could do. Pegasi clashed in the air with Griffins, smashing into each other like aerial battering rams. Unicorn battle mages flung spells at their foes, lighting the dark with fireballs and lightning. The entire fortress exploded with light and fire, the chaos of battle quickly shrouding everything inside. Dong, dong. Plumline pulled the bell frantically with all her strength. Behind her, she could hear more griffins landing with metallic planks on the wall. Dong. She felt him before she saw him. A griffin grabbed her with his claw, taking hold of her armor. The earth pony bent her head and bucked her hind legs, sending him flying. She whirled around, galloping towards the griffin with the intent to trample it. The griffin rolled away, taking off in flight. Still distracted by Plumline's charge, he failed to see a Pegasus streaking toward him. Pegasus smashed the griffin down into the wall with a sickening crunch, and Plumline raised her hoofmace and brought it down onto the creature's head. Squelch. I can just imagine that. The Pegasus landed in front of her. The fortress is lost. We can't fight them off. There are too many. Where's Captain Dartmouth? Down in the courtyard. Get down there and help him out. I'll cover you from the air. Plumline raced down the stairs, hearing the sounds of battle all around. The clash of metal, the screams of dying ponies and griffins, and the occasional snap hiss of a spell firing through the air. She reached the courtyard to find a scene of utter chaos. Bodies were everywhere, both pony and griffin, and the cobblestones were slicked with blood. The ponies had formed a line against the griffins, the earth ponies providing the unicorns with a wall of shields mounted on their sides while the unicorns worked their magic. The griffins swarmed around them, diving like eagles on the hunt, slashing with their blades and beaks. She ran straight for the center of the line. She fanned herself inside the pony's ranks and looked desperately for her captain. Dartmouth! Captain Dartmouth! Here, Sergeant! She found him in the thick of it, yelling orders to the unicorns. On the left! Don't let them get through! Hold the line, ponies! Plumline skidded to a halt before him. Sir, they're everywhere. The wall is lost. What are your orders? The captain looked grim. We can't hold them off forever. Our top priority now is to get the news to the princess. She and the Duchess need to know what's happened. Why not mention the Duke, too? Oh. They both ducked as one of the unicorns missed with a fireball spell, blasting a chunk of the wall apart and raining mortar down on the ponies' heads. Plumline, you're my fastest runner. We'll keep the griffins busy as long as we can. You have to get to Whitetail and tell them what's happened. Not a chance, sir. I'm not leaving. Plumline, don't be an idiot. We can't use you here anyway. Get that message out. Now! A griffin swooped down in the middle of the line, grappling with the captain. He rolled over, trying to keep its claws away from his eyes. He looked over at Plumline and shouted, Go! She turned and ran as fast as she could. She ran through the portcullis, through the gate, and out onto the road north. She ran and ran and ran. The sounds of battle faded behind her, but she could still hear the screaming in her head. Plumline couldn't stop to look back until she was far away. The fortress was a small dot on the horizon. The sun was rising to the east, revealing a tower of smoke from the direction of Self-Loft. Plumline, face streaked with tears, whispered, Goodbye, to all of her fellow guard ponies, and began the long journey north to Whitetail City. The news must be delivered. The princess had to be told. She couldn't let them down. The fighting lasted for hours. The ponies managed to fend off the griffins again and again, holding the line against them throughout the morning. But by noon, the unicorns were rapidly becoming exhausted. The Pegasi numbers fell as more griffins took the skies, forcing them back to the ground. The griffins corralled the ponies into the center of the courtyard, where they were surrounded on all sides. Captain Dartmouth maintained the shield line, creating a circle of impassable wood and metal. But the griffins had gained control of the gatehouse. The great fortress doors rolled open, and the griffins' ground troops poured inside. The infantry were heavily armored, grasping great spears and sharpened blades in their claws. Many had bucklers attached to their forearms, further shielding them from attack. Though too weighted down to fly, these griffins were battle-hardened and vicious. They clashed into the phalanx of ponies like a wave, breaking on their shields and spears. Gotta work my mouth for a second. Alright. The weary ponies soon began to falter. The griffins broke the line, cutting through to the unicorns and slaughtering many of the defenders. Dartmouth was slain by an armored griffin, caught from behind while trying to shield the unicorn. When he fell, the ponies knew the battle was over. They let their weapons fall, dropping to their knees in surrender. The leader of the invading force sat atop the wall, gazing over the remaining ponies. He was a huge griffin, nearly 3 meters tall even when he stood only on 4 legs. His wings spanned an impressive 10 feet, and his beak and claws were among the sharpest in Griffa. His eyes were cold and calculating, analyzing the fortunes and the result of the battle. His lieutenant landed lightly by his side, perching on the crenellations. General Shrikefeather. Interesting. General Shrikefeather, the fortress is ours. The general gave a gruesome smile, his beak twisting. He reached his claws up and removed his helmet. Excellent. What were our losses? He brushed a stray feather out of his eyes. We haven't run a full count yet, but estimates are about 40 to 50. One of the guards ruined our sneak attack by raising the alarm. Captain Withers was not pleased. His commandos have not failed in infiltration in a decade. Besides the dead, we have perhaps 70 incapacitated and another 100 or so with minor injuries. Still well within acceptable limits. Send a messenger to inform the main force that the way into Equestria is open. We'll begin moving our army north immediately. Yes, General, the lieutenant paused. What should we do with the prisoners? Shrikefeather snorted. What do you think? The lieutenant tilted his head. Execution? Don't be ridiculous, snapped the general, giving him an annoyed look. They're horses. Send them to the taskmaker to be broken, and then put them to work. We'll need all the laborers we can to ship the siege material up from Griffa. He stretched his wings. This is the first of many victories to come. The Equestrians are weaker than we thought. Rejoice, Lieutenant, for today is the dawning of a new age, an age of wings and steel. So that's where the title comes from. The age of the Griffins. His eyes blazed. As his subordinate flew off to carry out his orders, the general replaced his helmet. The campaign had begun. The invasion was underway. Alright, so... Yeah, whatever. No breaks. Chapter 10. The sun rose. Even after thousands of years, Celestia still felt a rush when she reached deep into the magic of the world and lifted that great burning orb over the horizon. Here, she knew that what she had to do, and there were no politics or petty arguing to muddle the situation. It was just her, the sun, and the most wonderful feeling of purpose. Sounds nice. The sun's rays burned away the last vestiges of night, and the moon vanished again. "Good morning, Equestria," said the princess, smiling with familiar giddy delight. Happy as a filly on her birthday, Celestia bounced down the stairs from her tower. And I can only imagine her bouncing like Pinkie Pie when, like, in the episode where, Gilda came. Yeah, really silly thought. She hummed a little tune as she went, remembering happier times. It was incredibly unprincess-like, and she loved it. But as she descended further and further into the castle, her joy gradually began to petter out and the dismal reality of the day seeped in. Celerity and Emmett were going to demand she hold up to her promise and deliver a decision. She knew what she must do, and she knew that no pony was going to like it, especially not herself. She couldn't send the troops Celerity wanted. Emmett would go to war with us if she did. He said as much in the last meeting. Her hopes were tied, much as she knew the Griffins were bound to attack the south sooner or later. Perhaps Emmett would see reason, but she doubted it. The happy feeling was entirely gone by the time she reached the council chamber. Oh, that's politics for you. Opening the door, she took her place on the throne. On either side sat her loyal firewings. Bergeron was calm, but Windstreak still looked shaken after yesterday's long talk. She avoided the princess's eye. Celestia regretted having to break the news about her son to her so abruptly, but Rye's journey had been too important to ask for her mother's permission. Her thoughts turned to Rye and Inger, her favorite companion among the guards. She had faith in them both, for Inger was a strong and loyal servant, and Rye had an inner strength of will that he himself had not yet discovered. She'd seen it that fateful morning, when he brought the news of Dawn's death. Celestia felt another pang of loss. She had so few true friends that every single one lost was like losing a limb. Dawn? Luna? Oh, that's sad. But there was no time to dwell. The council ponies had begun filtering into the chamber, and the session was about to begin. The atmosphere in the chamber was already at the breaking point. Celerity entered first, dressed in a very simple council robe. Celestia was surprised. It was unlike the Duchess to attend an event this important without being dressed to the nines. She's expecting a fight and wants to be able to move freely. Or she no longer cares about impressing the other nobles. Either way, it's not a good sign. The others entered behind her, all with serious expressions or scowls. Emmett came last, dressed most shockingly of all in the full ceremonial hauberk and mail of the Blue Blood House. Celestia's eyes narrowed. If any of the noble ponies tried to start a fight today, she would end it. Swiftly. But perhaps he was only trying to make a point. Oh, you were always a terrible liar, Celestia, especially to yourself. Every pony is present, Your Majesty. Bergeron bowed and stepped back to take his place by the side of the throne. Celestia surveyed the council, trying to gauge the intentions of the ponies assembled. There was a current of anger rushing through the room, barely contained beneath the surface of civility. She noticed that the provinces had arrayed themselves at the table around Celerity and Emmett. The unofficial fracturing of Equestria along the faction lines had suddenly become overt. Let this meeting of the assembled council of Equestria be opened. Celestia dipped her head to the nobles. I think we can skip the opening ceremony, Your Highness, Celerity broke in. We've wasted enough time this week. This issue needs to be resolved today. Celestia let the gaffe pass without comment. I agree. As do I, said Blue Blood huffily. It's high time this warmongering fool was put in her place. The princess glanced coldly at Blue Blood, her voice turning dangerous. We will thank you, Emmett, to remain civil. Your Majesty, what is your final decision? Celerity was impatient and tense. She seemed jumpy, like a spring pushed together and ready to explode outwards. Celestia breathed deeply in anticipation of the backlash. I have thought long and hard on the issue, and have come to a conclusion. I regret to say that bang, bang, bang! Every head in the hall turned toward the door. It burst open and a grey Pegasus bearing the symbol of the couriers on his cloak galloped into the chamber. Blueblood stood angrily. What kind of insult is this? No pony is allowed inside while the consul is in such a— Princess! Said the messenger, breathing heavily. He clearly just landed after a long flight, for his feathers were in disarray and his mane was windswept. I have news from the south. And this warranted an interruption of the councils. The messenger cut Blueblood off again. Griffa has attacked the Southlands. Subplot has fallen. As we speak, the Griffin army is pouring into Southland. Even Blueblood was stunned into complete silence. Nearly a minute passed without a word from any pony. Finally, trying to keep her voice from cracking, Celestia said, When? 3 days ago. Only one of the ponies from the garrison escaped with the news. I carried the message as fast as I could. The messenger looked around and realized his duty was done. He bowed quickly and retreated from the room. Celerity stood. Blueblood, your folly has doomed us all. She turned to the princess. Will you fight with us, princess? My army stand ready to face the Griffin threat. We will do so, with or without you. The princess looked to Blueblood. He spit on the table, his face twisted with rage. I would rather die than let you seize control of Equestria Belle. I won't stand for this. Celestia gave him a withering glare. You deluded imbecile. Princess Celestia, Celerity proposes treason. Arrest this bitch before she stabs you in the back. Note that I don't cuss often, so I did it for you guys. Well, it was part of the script, whatever. The chamber exploded. Ponies stood, screaming at each other. Singular voices rose above the rest. Weatherford stands with Whitetail. Helmfast remains loyal to Norhart. Westerman will follow Whitetail. The provinces split visibly, the nobles siding between Belle and Blueblood. Celestia watched in horror as our country ripped itself in two. The factions withdrew to either side of the room, staring each other down. A few representatives remained in the middle, staring in dismay at their fellows. So Celestia, said Celerity, once the tumult had faded into icy stares, will you stand with us against the Griffins and Blueblood's tyranny? No! Celestia cried, her heart breaking. Please, both of you, don't do this! We need to stand together now more than ever. We can't fight each other. No pony should spill another's blood. We need to work with each other, not waste horsepower in a pointless war. Please, counselor, see reason. I won't work with that incompetent fool. If it's a war he wants, it's a war he'll get. Then so be it, Belle, said Blueblood. The northern provinces won't stand for your political bullying any longer. Roars of assent from the northern delegates backed up his claim. Princess, Celerity tried one last time, will you join us? Celestia tried and failed to hold back her tears. Celestia, I can't condone this. Please reconsider. She fell to her knees. Ooh. I beg you. The Duchess shook her head. I no longer have faith in Equestria, Princess. If the southern provinces must stand alone, then so we shall. She turned on her hooves, her robe billowing behind her. She left without looking back, and the rest of the southern delegates followed her. I'll see her hanged for this, ranted Blueblood. She thinks she could just take over the country. We'll see about that. He stormed out, followed by his entourage. The few remaining ponies slowly got up and left, still reeling from the meeting's events. Equestria had just been thrown into two simultaneous wars, and their provinces would be caught in the middle. Before he exited, Lord Easthill approached the princess, who still stood in shock by her throne. Milady, we're still loyal to you, whatever happens. Thank you, Sigmund, whispered Celestia. Go and inform your citizens. Tell them to prepare for war. He bowed and left. Celestia took her leave, telling the Firewings not to disturb her. She climbed back up her tower, walking up to the platform where she raised the sun every day and moon every night. She sat out under the sky, looking westward over Equestria. Oh, Luna, I screwed it up. I wish you were here. You always knew how to get me out of trouble. And right back into it, again, more often than not. Celestia's eyes brimmed with tears. She let it out, sobbing. She wept for Celerity, for Emmett, for all the ponies who would lose their lives in the coming war. She wept for Luna. She wept for herself. She wept for the world. And that is kind of a depressing ending to that chapter. Oh well. Anyway, I'm kind of surprised that, like, for seeming so loyal to her that they actually, like, would go to war against her judgment. Oh well, in any case, good night, good morning, or whenever the hell you're watching this. And yeah, see y'all later.